Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. 270,000 homeowners who purchased this year are underwater on their mortgage. And it's 19 degrees outside, a little cold in the office. I haven't warmed it up yet. So if you see me shaking during this video, it's because I'm afraid there's a housing crash coming. Of course, I'm kidding. I'm just like you. I'm hoping that there's a crash coming because I want to buy more properties. And a lot of people are waiting for a crash to do that. So I want to talk about articles like this where they talk about 270,000 people being underwater on their mortgage. And somehow our brain tries to relate that to there could be a crash coming. So we read the article. We watch the video. I can relate. In 2009, I was underwater on a house. I wasn't an investor yet. I was a home buyer. And basically, I was screwed. The way you would think of these people who are underwater on their mortgage this year are screwed. I'm also going to talk about how being underwater on that house led me to financial freedom and let me retire early, financially free. In 2009, just before then, I was a police officer. I was laid off during the recession and found out about a lot of bad debt in my name I didn't know existed till the divorce. I was a single parent with 3 kids, and I was really underwater on the house. I owed about $138,000 on a house that the value had dropped to around $110,000. So selling wasn't an option. I couldn't even give the house away. Subject to wasn't an option because home buyers could buy properties, houses, for less than what I owed. There are a lot of people in a similar situation now. If they purchased a house in the last 6 months, and in some areas, home prices have gone down. Not in mine. I wish they did. I'm like all of you. I wish prices would come down, but they haven't. But in some markets, they have. So those people who purchased in the last 6 months could own a house now that is worth less than what they paid for it. And it's actually a bit worse than that. The cost of selling a house is around 8%. I mean, you can probably do it for 6. Some people have done it for more, but it's around 8% once you put everything together, especially in some markets like we're seeing now where sellers are having to bring more things to the table, like buying down interest rates. So with this cost of selling being around 8% and some homes being worth less than what they bought it for, those people are screwed just like I was. But are they? Was I? More importantly, will this cause a crash? We are already in a crash in transactions, but will this cause a crash in prices that we're all hoping for? Well, everyone but the sellers is hoping for. So I want to quickly look at the numbers. Around 64% of Americans have a mortgage. There's around 209 million adults in the United States, which means that there's around 130 million mortgages. 130 million mortgages, 270,000 underwater. So if all of them had to sell, which is not what happens, is 270,000 out of 130 million an impact? If enough homeowners were underwater and had to sell, could it cause a housing crash in prices? Yes.
But not today.
Not when 0.002% of mortgages are underwater. I also kind of want to talk about the people who are waiting for a crash to buy, people that are doing what I do, watch videos, looking for the data point that's going to say, here's why a crash is actually going to happen. Because we think if prices crash, we would buy. We've already seen the crash in transactions. In most years we do around 5.5 to 6.5 million transactions. This year we're just above 4 million. But are we going to see a crash in prices? Like that's the key that we're all looking for. Prices going back to where they were in 2020 or 2021. We would love to see probably prices go back to where they were in 2021. I purchased a duplex in 2021 for just under $400,000. Like a list price was $400,000. I offered $400,000. We settled on $3,975, right? In that same area right now, duplexes that need more work than what mine did are about $550,000. I'd love to see them come down. If they came down to $450,000, I'd be snatching them up, but they're not. So again, when we just look at the number, 270,000 mortgages underwater. Sounds like a lot. Even in the Yahoo article where they talk about 270,000 mortgages being underwater, most people didn't read to the next paragraph where it said that's about 8% of the mortgages from this year. Not 8% of the mortgages in existence, but mortgages this year. While this can suck for some people, it isn't going to crash the market.
But not today.
It's actually kind of going to go the other direction. Look at something else that's doing something similar. There's this thing called the interest rate trap, where people who purchased a home in 2020 or 2021 or refinanced a home in 2020 or 2021 where their interest rate is 4% or less. An example is I have some real estate investment properties. Investment properties generally have a higher interest rate than one that somebody owns to live in at 3%. I'm not selling. Those home buyers aren't selling. Let's look specifically at the people who purchased this year and the 8% of the people who purchased this year who are now currently underwater, and add seasonality. Every year at this time of year, home prices go down because there's less competition in the winter, because in some areas it's actually really cold and hard to move and kids are in school. So there's reasons for this time of year for prices to go down. So let's look at the homeowners who purchased this year. 8% of the mortgages made this year underwater. And flashback to 2009. I was divorced, laid off, a single parent, bunch of bad debt, all the things people say that could cause somebody to become a forced seller. Take a note. I couldn't sell. I couldn't give the house away. The huge difference between then and now is back then we had almost half, a little more than half of the mortgages were adjustable rates. So when rates went up, people's payments increased. Right now, the majority of mortgages are fixed rate. So while we have a recession coming and some people might get laid off, they're not going to have their home price that they locked in go up significantly. And even if they got an adjustable rate mortgage this year, it's 2 to 5 years out before that rate adjustment kicks in. Not looking at me back then, let's look at now. The person who purchased 6 months ago, home values dropped. It would cost 8% to sell. It doesn't mean they lost equity and they have to sell. It means they can't sell. And this isn't something new. There's really two factors to it. Anytime somebody purchases a house with an FHA loan, an owner-occupied loan, or worse, a VA loan that's zero down, they put little money into the property. And the cost of selling is 8%. And then you add seasonality. So this time of year, prices come down. Every single year, home buyers who purchase are underwater. Newsflash, water is wet. Great job, Yahoo, for creating fear and uncertainty in the asset class that has produced the most millionaires. If you plan on buying a house to live in and then sell it within a year, don't buy a house. The cost of selling is going to make you lose money in almost every market. The reason buy and hold investing works is because I don't care if prices go down. I've never done a cash out refinance. I've never taken out a home equity line of credit. I've never sold to 1031 the gains into the next property. My strategy for reaching financial freedom, which was spurred by me being stuck in a house I couldn't get rid of, is saving up a down payment. It's very boring. It's not sexy. Buying a rental property, taking the cash flow from the rental property and my savings rate, combining them and buying the next rental property. Doing that strategy, the average person can make work optional in less than 10 years. It doesn't take hundreds of units. The average person can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. But they're not going to do it if they're looking constantly for the reason to wait. And be clear, I'm not saying buy now. I'm not saying wait to buy. What is happening in the market should never tell you if you should buy or not. What's happening in your life should. Are you ready? Have you learned how to save? Live on less than what you make? Have you fixed your credit score? Have you chosen a market? Have you picked a strategy? Have you gone through all of the basics to know that you are ready to buy? And then the most important thing that happens, did you find a great deal? If you find a great deal tomorrow, you buy it tomorrow. If you don't find a great deal for 2 years, you buy in 2 years. You determine when to buy, not what is happening in the market. Don't time the market. I hope this video has at least made you think. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.